I'm Matt Valley, and this is the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. So today's guest is Luke Kulik, who's from the great city of Chicago, the city where, in fact, all three of my children were born. So I've got a lot of love for Chicago. Feels like sweet home to me, as I'm sure it does to you. So
Indeed.
for the past 9 months or so, Luke has been the senior director of sales at a really great marketing and consumer insights platform company called Prodege. You may have worked with them in the past, just as I have at various stops in my career. I've always trusted Protege. They do great stuff, really reliable, and every time I talk to them, they seem to have something new. So cool company, but not the place where Luke started his research career, which actually was at YouGov, where he spent just shy of 6 years, I want to say, with progressive responsibility, we'll say. Yeah, welcome to the industry. That's great. But the cool thing about Luke, it isn't that he plays piano or guitar. It's that he also plays, I don't know, violin, saxophone, most woodwinds, drums, percussion, and God knows what else. And. Man, some people, I tell you. So we're going to talk about all that and more on today's podcast. Welcome to the show, Luke.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. Yeah, I've never been on a podcast before, so
Hey.
definitely honored to be here. This is fun, exciting.
Cool.
Thanks for the warm plug-in as well too. And yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, very excited to have you. There's a lot that we can dig into here today. I'm looking forward to it. But let's start as we usually do with research. So how did you find your way to research in the first place, and tell us about what you're doing at Protege?
Yeah, so I sort of found myself in research by accident, where I think a lot of people I've spoken to have sort of fallen into it. Before I was working in marketing and advertising, basically putting together everything from broadcast TV campaigns to marketing to experiential, selling, advertising. And I was probably in my late 20s. I was kind of actually getting somewhat burnt out from the industry, and there's a lot of there's a lot of postulating at that time too. Like there wasn't so much of it backed by data. But when we did actually, use that data, that's really where I felt the most comfortable with it. So I was kind of into it. I didn't really pay attention too much in my stats classes back in the day. But when I was older, I was really fascinated by sort of the stories that we could tell, from the data. So one of my friends who was working in the industry, she recommended this company, YouGov. And I was like, I looked at their website. I was like, who is this company? I wasn't really interested just based on the way it looked. I thought it was like some government agency. So she got me to apply multiple times. She kept sending me these job openings. And eventually I did it, talked to the people there, and I really fell in love with what they were doing. And I think for me, like, over the years, what I've really loved is sort of the democracy of market research. It's sort of like the more people that are involved in these decisions that are made by these, institutions that are supposed to serve us, ultimately the better that's going to be. And I really love the sort of overarching philosophy of research. And yeah, it's just always exciting. It's new. There's a lot of, repetition, a lot of the things we do, day to day, but you always find some really interesting stories to uncover and, exciting data points to stimulate media interest and drive, all sorts of interesting strategies. So yeah, it's been a great shift, and I've probably no plan on ever leaving the industry. So I'll be a lifer, and, hopefully I get to meet, anyone here that's watching the podcast in the future.
Yeah, cool. I remember the thing that really struck me falling into the research industry by accident, working on this project. I came to the realization that, because at that time we were doing mail surveys, and I was the one who was opening the envelopes, keying in all the data, and then tabulating it.
Wow.
And I remember the rush that I had on that first project when I realized I am the first person. In fact, I'm the only person in the world who knows this esoteric piece of information that actually is very, very important, could drive, $1 million decisions. I'm the only person who knows it. And I'm just this kid that just graduated from school. And I just got such a thrill out of it. It was really cool. And I still get that feeling. Uh,
Yeah, I know the feeling too. When we would work with like QSR and a lot of companies that were doing product testing, it's like, hey, I use this brand all the day, every day or often. And now we get to see what new products that they're launching, things that nobody else knows about. What's the name of the
yeah.
new burger or whatever it is, new soap brand. So it's like as for me seeing that early on, I felt like I was part of this like exclusive club.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Hey, research is it's exclusive in that you've got to be cool to be in. No, you don't have to be
Of
cool.
course,
It's
absolutely.
very inclusive, but you're right. When you know something that no one else knows, it's really it's really cool. So tell us a little bit about your role then at Protege.
Yeah, so I work I'm more or less on the new business team. So I wear a few different hats, but essentially my job is to work side by side with the client, help them to formulate the best plan of action, and then sort of bringing our team together and the right people to ensure that everyone gets the most reportable, actionable outcome with the data. And there's so many different sources that we can pull from at Protege. And this is one of the things that I was really interested about the company. They're not just doing survey data. They're doing
Right.
they have all different types, shopper data, receipt capture. People are playing games with the platform. All these is fun and unique different ways so we can engage our panel. So for us, that leaves a lot of room from a creativity standpoint to come up with different
Yeah.
solutions. So, I'd say half of my job is working with the clients, sort of being the face, and helping to obviously grow our business and expand our reputation and our word of mouth. But also at the same time, coming up with really fun, unique strategies, listening in with some of our experts, and we have some absolutely brilliant folks. So it's always like a privilege just being able to listen to them. So yeah, that's basically it. I tend to do a lot of working from home, but try to go to as many conferences as I can too, and go out and travel every once in a while. See some faces, and yeah.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Excellent. All right, so let's talk music, man. So you play all of these instruments like
Too many. Yeah.
it's really impressive. Because a lot of them are just so different. I mean, it's not like the same discipline. So how did you get interested in that and tell us kind of what you're doing now with music?
Yeah. I think when I first started, I was maybe on piano. I don't remember what song it was, but I heard a song and my mom played a little bit of piano, so I got into it right away. Um, so I played piano maybe from the time I was 6 or 7 until I was around 12. And it sounds kind of cheesy because they play it on the radio all the time now. But when Santana's Smooth came on, I heard
Yeah.
Santana and Santana's band, and sort of the beauty of his tone and the sort of melody and the sort of passion that you could hear that was conveyed with his style of guitar work. But
Right.
also the band coming together to the ethnic vibe, sort of the Latin
Yeah.
mix that they had with it. I'd never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of shifted. I put down the keys and I started learning guitar. And I pretty much locked myself in my room for like 3 years. It's all I was doing. And once you learn one, string instrument, and you get to the level where you feel like, okay, I've done what I'm going to do with this instrument. If you're like me, repetition can get a little boring. So I was like, oh, I want to try something else. So I started with violin, and then when you learn violin, you got to learn a little cello, and then I was playing like sitar and the Greek bouzouki because I have some Greek ancestry as well too. So I started getting into all kinds of the mandolin. Banjo is one thing I was never really that great at, but I do have one, so I play it once in a while. And then from there, I don't know, it just kind of spiraled out. I heard someone playing sax on the street in Chicago. I listen to sax all the time, but just listening to them, it was just so powerful. So I picked that one up about 5 or 6 years ago. And there's a lot of other things in between there, I guess, too. I play like the Indian bansuri, which is like a sort of like an Indian wooden flute. That's a lot of fun. I just kind of like mixing the different genres together too. For me,
Yeah.
like, originality is really at the top. That's the thing that really inspires me the most. So when I see other bands and artists sort of like fusing together different genres, and making music, different genres more accessible to different cultures, I feel like is something I'm really interested in. So I try not to limit myself, but obviously there's a trade-off there. When you're learning so many instruments, it's you tend to not practice maybe your central instrument much. So
Yeah, yeah.
keeps me busy.
It's interesting, especially with a lot of those ethnic instruments that you mentioned from other cultures. It's not just the actual technical element of playing the instrument, but it's also the different structure and meter and
Mhm.
percussive elements of the music that also comes into play. So how do you think about that or work through those things?
It's like for me, I usually start an instrument because I heard a sound that I liked. So it's like, I heard a song or I heard an artist, and instantly that's what I want to emulate. I want to get that down. So for me, it's like
Yeah,
just finding the right tone. It's not about being technical and learning how to read, the sheet music and translate sheet music, from the sax to the piano, and because it's there's obviously like differences and nuances there. For me, it's just about getting that tone and that sound and feeling good playing it. Feeling those
yeah,
vibrations through your body, sort of. Um, and then from there, I start getting a little bit more technical with it. So I usually kind of have an idea of like a note or a song or a few notes that I want to
yeah,
play. So that's kind of what drives me. And often, it's like, hey, you start that, then you get that, and then you put down the instrument. You don't play for a while. It's like, oh, hey, you don't want to just limit yourself to that. But
yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of like letting your inspiration drive you. There's a reason I picked up the instrument, and try to find new artists and new variations of things to pick up and play, and that's it. It's always difficult trying to keep yourself motivated,
Yeah.
to
So
learn new.
is this a private studio passion for you, or do you play in bands around Chicago? I know it's a great music scene there.
Yeah, no, it's a great. In years ago, I played in multiple different cover tribute bands. Not a big fan of John Mellencamp, but I played in the premier John Mellencamp tribute band in the U.S. and actually got to play with the bassist and John for the bassist's birthday one year too. So that was cool. I played in like
Wow.
Led Zeppelin tribute bands, a couple others that are pretty well known around here. So I did that for many years, and actually it was like a nice little side hustle for me. But I just got so burnt out from the, playing other people's cover music. So I kind of took a break from that, and I started working with a lot of singers in Chicago. And we tried to develop some, uh, uh, some albums. I worked with individual singers. I worked with, a few original bands, but nothing really kind of took off. And lately, what I've been doing actually is kind of working with some electronic artists and fusing together blues with this sort of growing, sort of rock and roll themed electronic that's going on right now too. So it's like soultronic and all these different weird genres. They're coming up with new stuff all the time, but
Yeah.
trying to bridge that because that's sort of the new generation's rock and roll. It's like
Yeah.
people hear that now like they heard rock and roll back in the day. Like, what is this music? It's too loud. It's all of these things, and that's sort of this new style that's coming out. So connecting those two together is definitely something that's of interest to me. So yeah, I do that. I work with like rappers, DJs, and they'll be like, "Can you put some guitar on this track, or
Yeah.
add some here, or some sax, whatever."
Love it.
Yeah,
Cool.
a
Cool.
lot of fun. A lot of fun. Yeah,
So you went, I mean, pretty deep on the music side, right? And now you've been in research. You said, was it like 7 years, 8 years, something like that?
yeah.
So is there anything you learned, or do you think you have some sort of innate quality or experience that has been useful to you on the research side?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I think like, it's like when you learn a new instrument, you don't just like come up with your own style or sound right away. You learn from some of the best people out there. You get inspired. And then really after that, you can kind of make your own statement. And I think that's a lot like with the professional career. You don't just come in thinking like you know everything.
Right.
You
Yeah.
listen, you learn. Eric Clapton said something much more eloquently. I can't, but it's sort of paraphrasing what he had said, and it's right. You have to listen before you can make your own statement. And it's same thing with when you're doing research or you're doing sales. You have to kind of learn from the best. You have to copy. and be okay with that. And then you'll see how your style changes and evolves until you have, essentially your own sort of way of doing things,
Yeah.
that people can find, like, to give an interesting perspective. So that, and, hey, music requires a lot of discipline. Like,
Yeah.
if I were just getting into it now, I don't think I could do it. But I had, years and years of putting the instrument down and saying, no, I got to come back to it. I got to finish the song. I have to learn this or whatever.
Yep.
So that's definitely, I think, helped me throughout the years too.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I love that. I love that. Cool. So in your time in research, a whole lot has changed, right? So you've gone through the pandemic and everything. I'm curious to know from your perspective, what do you see as becoming important in the research space, or will be in the future?
Yeah, I think some of it's like some of it's the same issues, I think, as when I started in the research industry years ago. I think a lot of it's like connecting data. We have all these different
Yeah.
data sources. How do we connect them? How do we add logic to data coming in from shopper receipts, data to back end, to credit card data, to primary research, all of these different segmentation analysis, things like that. So I think, people are still finding new and easier ways to connect this data and make sense of it. And I definitely think that, connected data and visual, finding new ways to visualize that, which obviously put my sales hat on for a minute. Prodege does that extraordinarily well. And that was one of the things that was really interesting to me. But I think what I'm really most interested and terrified, I think at the same time, is what AI is going to do to market research.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have that similar sentiment. Right now, I think it's been great. Like, we even have an AI survey builder built into our sort of DIY tool. But you look at like what ChatGPT and everything is doing now, it's like, I just wonder how that's going to change the research industry in the next few years. It's going
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
good.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are kind of nervously tracking that development and seeing where it goes. It's, yeah, something else. Definitely not anything that I ever thought we would be, thinking about and working through so soon. So,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
you wonder what is AI proof, because now, from music, have you seen any like the AI music that's being created now too? And
Oh, I don't even want to.
you really don't want to. You don't want to. Stay away from it. I mean, you see like the AI art, it's pretty cool, but I never thought AI could generate a, somewhat original sounding song, and it'll be interesting to see.
Oh, crushing, man.
All right.
Being a drummer, it's doubly bad. I mean, I already lived through the electronic drums and program
Mhm.
beats and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
We don't even use electronic for the group that I'm working with. I really don't like the sound of analog drums. So we actually use real drums in our music while still
nice.
combining. Yeah. So I thought you'd be happy to hear that. Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. I'm
Yeah.
very happy to hear that. All right, keep it drummer employed.
Yeah.
Okay, so big broad question for you here. Can be music, can be research, can be anything. So when you think about the media that you turn to for insight, enjoyment, or inspiration, what does that look like?
I mean, I'm a big fan of YouTube. I absolutely love it. I've learned all of the instruments that I've learned since I was, because they didn't have YouTube when I was younger. You had to actually go in and get like a VHS and get the tabs or sheet music.
Yeah,
Not like that.
or a
But
teacher even.
yeah, or a teacher even. Yeah, yeah. But I really love YouTube. And you learn anything on YouTube. I just learned how to do my plumbing in my bathroom like on YouTube. Shouldn't have done it, but so I love that, because you see so many different renditions, especially when it comes from music, all different versions of the same thing. And I love when I can find something that's very familiar to me, and when I hear it, it sounds completely unfamiliar but beautiful at the same time. And it's like taking a song that's well known and just turning it into something completely different. And that really, I think, gives me inspiration for music, but also just in life in general. It's like when you think you've finished something or you've created something, kind of look a little deeper, dig a little deeper and see what else you can contribute. So I love that. And my wife loves TikTok and I can't stand it. She's on it nonstop. But I love YouTube. I think it's just a great way, educational, it's entertaining. And probably wouldn't work as a DJ because all my music is on my YouTube playlist. I don't think anyone uses it to generate playlists, but so yeah, I use that a lot. And I don't know, I guess I love originality. I kind of mentioned that a couple of times, but I'm always seeking that. So outside of just regular media, I try to go to like open mics and things like that too. And that stuff really interests me. And from a business standpoint too, we do a lot of like learning within Protege as well too, and we sort of have not so much on like traditional social media, but various platforms in which we can not only learn to be better in our profession, but just in general as well too. How to manage your workday better, and sort of make sure you're allowing time to take care of your mind, but also your body, and other things like that. So I'm really into that kind of stuff, especially now that I'm getting a little bit older. My knees are getting a little bit more worn out, and sitting down staring at the screen all day. So
Yeah.
I try to find it in different ways. But from a media standpoint, I think YouTube, if that's what you meant, I think that's really been clutch for me.
Yeah, that works. You mentioned open mics, so just to have an anecdote to share because it's about Chicago, just thinking about
Please,
it. So when my wife and I got married and started a family, we moved to Chicago, and then we moved around a lot over the years. And so I had like this 15-year period where I wasn't playing drums, right? And before that, I was playing in all kinds of bands. I was kind of doing a jobber sort of thing after I did my thrash metal thing. But the thing that kept me going was, do you remember this place in the Gold Coast, Chicago, called the Underground Wonder Bar?
Oh yeah. I've actually never been there,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the original location. And so when we first moved to Chicago, it was a block from there. And I would head in there on, I think it was Sunday nights, or else it was Monday nights. They had an open stage. And so they had a blues band there, super smoky bar, right? So you could barely see in front
Oh
of you.
yeah.
And they had a blues band, and you could grab any instrument, right? And then you go up there and say, what would you like to play? And get up there, and I grab the sticks and say,
Right on.
let's play Sweet Home Chicago, or let's play Kansas City, or something like that, right? So it was a very, very cool experience. I know it changed locations. I don't know if it's still open, but I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
Kept me going.
Oh yeah, those are hard to find too. I know Kingston Mines does one on Monday, but they
Yeah.
have such like a set band. It's hard unless you're going there and showing your face like every week. It's sort of like respect.
They don't trust you.
Well, they know me, but they're like, hey man, you haven't come in 4 sessions. This guy's come, and he was here the last 3 weeks. So it gets competitive at those things. Actually, so we're doing the market research at Quirks in Chicago. And I don't know if you know of like the market research jam band.
Dude, somebody told me about that recently. I'm like, how did I know about this?
I know. I'm surprised I didn't mention it too before our call when we were talking earlier. Because it's like exactly that, but they have certain, sort of filled out lists now, but I finally got them to let me do 2 songs. So I'm doing,
nice.
am I doing Crossfire by Steve Ray Vaughan and Rock and Roll, the lead rock and roll solo for Led Zeppelin Rock and Roll, which by the way is a total mess, that solo. It's like it's like he had a stroke halfway through the so I have to relearn that one. Yeah, man, you should if you go to any of the conferences, you got to get in. I know one of the guys that does the drumming actually works here, Kevin Lang at Prodege. So
okay,
for sure.
All right,
bring him on your podcast. Actually, he's got some good stories to tell.
Okay, we'll talk.
Talk. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so here's the big question. I mean, you play all these instruments. You've had exposure and passion across many different styles. So it's the big question. I don't know how much you've thought about this in your life, but you're stranded on a desert island, let's say, right? And you've got 3 records at your disposal to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are those 3?
Well, I would ask if I could replace it with an instrument, so I could, not have so much repetitiveness with the 3. But since I can't and I have to pick, I'd probably say Led Zeppelin 4, Because
Okay. Yeah.
when the levee breaks is one of my favorite songs, and going to California very relaxing. So that would be like my relaxing song on the
Yeah.
album. Metallica Black Album. You know,
Oh,
when I'm
interesting. Yeah.
hurt, when I'm in pain, you know, or when I need to work
Yeah.
out or something, need energy. I gotta hear some of that. And then you know, I'd probably have to balance. I do love classical music too. Not a lot of people talk about that these days, you know, but I would probably bring along like Chopin, you know, greatest work, something like that.
Yeah.
Mixing, yeah.
Very
Um,
nice. Yeah. Very interesting choices. You got some metal on there, which
just a
doesn't
little bit,
often
yeah, yeah. I
happen.
wasn't
Doesn't
sure if you would classify Metallica as metal, but to
Well,
me,
that's a metal. That's Metallica V2, so it's not their thrash metal days, but still, still pretty. I mean, it's metal for sure. I mean,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. So,
I saw them at in Chicago a few months ago, actually, at the what is it, Lollapalooza this year.
oh,
So,
nice,
yeah, they were awesome.
nice.
Definitely check them out. Yeah, they still got it.
Still got it. Awesome,
Sure.
excellent, super cool. Well, we've definitely uncovered some things that we need to follow up on after this podcast. So, hey, it was great to meet you, Luke. I really
Yeah.
appreciate the chat, and let's talk very, very soon. Let's do the thing at Quirks, man. Maybe we can jam on stage together. So,
We'll do it for sure. Yeah, yeah. Let's
dude,
talk about it. But yeah,
let's
thanks
pick,
so much. Thanks for having me on, man. It's been a lot of fun. Rock
pick
on.
an app and rock and roll, man.